Hello friends, my name is India, this is Eleanor. I use she, they pronouns, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a book haul. This comes as no surprise to me, and yet I am still frustrated by it, but I have not been reading books at the rate at which I've been accumulating books. But I wanted to show you all of the books that I've accumulated this year. When I look at these, I feel pretty good about it, just in the sense that, like, as compared to previous years, the rate at which I'm acquiring books has gone down. It's still, you know, my rate of reading books has also been going down, so I don't anyway, I'm gonna talk to you about all of the books that I've accumulated this year thus far. We're about halfway through the year. We're gonna start with two books that I acquired that I'm reading right now, which I think is exciting to read the books read books within the year that I picked them up. So the first of those is The Overstory by Richard Powers. I'm currently reading this alongside my grandfather. This is about people and their relationship to trees, but that doesn't quite feel like the right description of what this is about. This is about people across America, I believe. I'm trying to remember if any of the stories take place outside of the States, but across different time periods in different places, and about these people and their relationships to themselves, their relationships to others, and how trees are linked into that. It's fantastic. I'm loving this a lot. I've been reading it for a couple months now and just taking it pretty slowly. I love this cover. It's incredibly engrossing, and one of those things that I think the process of reading it is this like balance between like wanting to consume it and wanting to really savor every line. I'm also reading The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. I'm listening to this on audiobook, which I'm really enjoying. I listen to it while I knit, which is great. This is historical fiction set between World War I and World War II about Frances, who she and her mother are living alone. Their sons / brothers have died in the war, and then the husband or father has died and left them with this house and all of these expenses and all of these bills that were poorly managed. So they decide to take in paying guests or lodgers, and it is about the relationships that form between them and the people who move in, so Mr. and Mrs. Barber. Sarah Waters writes queer historical fiction, and I am a fan of queer historical fiction. I really enjoyed The Fingersmith. I really enjoyed The Little Stranger, so I am not surprised that I'm really enjoying this one. Okay, those are the books that I'm currently reading. The majority of these are secondhand books, just because that's how I prefer to acquire my books, whether it's like at thrift stores or at secondhand bookstores or in little free libraries. But I do have a selection of new books, which I might just go through now. Some of the first books that I acquired this year are two classics. I'm not sure if I picked this one up this year or last year, but we're just gonna go with it. This is A Middlemarch by George Eliot, and this is My Antonia by Willa Cather. These are my favorite classic editions. They're so tiny, and like the experience of reading them is exquisite. So Middlemarch is a classic that I have not read that I want to read. I have a lot of really big books that I'd like to read, and there's part of me that's like, just like take like, take a couple weeks out of the summer, like, devote 1 week to a really big book, and that's how you can get through these. But I don't know if that's the method I want to use. So I have Middlemarch, and then I have My Antonia, which is a book I have read. This is kind of like a American West classic that I've forgotten most of it. Willa Cather is an author I'm really curious about, both just like as like a woman writing in America at the time that she was writing, and then also the like queerness I'm curious about. I then also picked up another huge book, Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. Anthony Doerr is the only author whose entire works I have read, save this. The Shell Collector is one of my favorite books that I need to reread, because I read it in high school, so I need to revisit whether that favorite marker stands true. This is historical fiction and maybe kind of magic, I believe. I enjoy his writing. He's an Idaho-based author, which I feel like is always exciting to support? I don't know. I'm gonna just stack these here and maybe continue to do so. Okay, other new books I've acquired. Anti-Man by Rajiv Mohabir. This is a hybrid memoir, which is like that subtitle and then also the cover pulled me to this book. This was something where I went to a bookstore and I was like drawn to it, and I was like, I don't know what this is about. I don't need this, so I put it back down. And then a couple months later, I went to a different bookstore and I picked this up and I was like, why does this feel familiar? And so that time around, I decided to get it. This is a memoir. Rajiv Mohabir grew up an outsider both within his Central Florida community as a Guyanese Indian immigrant and within his westernized Christian family, where his curiosity about their heritage as Hindus and indentured laborers is unwelcome. Yeah, I think this explores identity, this explores sexuality, this explores like ethnicity and like cultural identity. So I'm interested and excited, and it's yellow underneath, like pink and red and yellow. A great combination. I know I should swap those, but I'm not going to. A book I did not buy, so it's kind of a little bit of an outlier, but was given to me through my work, is Permission to Feel: The Power of Emotional Intelligence to Achieve Well-Being and Success by Mark Brackett. This feels potentially like some, like it feels like something that's going to be like, here's why emotional intelligence is like really important for the workplace. And normally that's how one word, I would not be interested, but I think as an educator, I am curious about learning more about how emotional intelligence is essential for my job and is something that I can practice and like learn and will always be acquiring more of, that I'll never be done. There's not like one point where you're like, I'm emotionally intelligent and I can't learn anything else about it. Yeah, I mean, like, reading a book isn't gonna solve the fact that we're severely undersupported. Moving on. I have 2 books I picked up from a small, independent, like, used and new bookstore that I love. It's really tiny, and like the shelves go all the way up to the ceilings, and it's beautiful. But I picked up The Melancholy of Anatomy by Shelley Jackson, and Love is Not Constantly Wondering If You Are Making the Biggest Mistake of Your Life. This is something I was interested in because it is in a choose your own adventure format, which I loved as a kid. I think choose your own adventure books are like my gold standard of audience interaction in literature, or like yeah, I just think they're fantastic. And this seems wild. When I was buying it, the bookseller was like, yeah, this is going out of print because the author like no longer wants this to be something that is, or like the relationship that this is written about. He's like, I'm ready to move on and I'm ready for this to no longer be something that like is being printed, which is interesting. But this is, yeah, about this relationship between two people, one of whom is like an active alcoholic, and so I know that is like part of what is in here, but also there's like this ant issue. You've been taken captive by a race of giant super intelligent ants. So this seems weird and cool. And then The Melancholy of Anatomy, this is a selection of short stories about the body turned inside out, its membranes set free, its humors released upon the world. I was working on a performance piece that was really about the body and really about turning the body inside out, and I saw this and I was like, holy crap, that used the exact language. I want to get it and read it. So I think this is going to be gross and bodily and hopefully exciting. I then picked up We Are the Weather, Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast by Jonathan Safran Foer. This is a piece of this is a climate crisis book, specifically focused on individual action regarding food, I believe, but also just about like what are the minuscule ways that we individually and therefore collectively are impacting our environment. So this is something I picked up to read as part of a upcoming video. Yeah. And then the two most recent like new books I've acquired are Gathering Moss, A Natural and Cultural History of Mosses by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I loved Braiding Sweetgrass. It's one of those books that I want to like be continually reading. And so a friend and I are going to be reading this together because they also loved Braiding Sweetgrass. So in July, we're gonna pick this up and read it together and like talk about it and have a little book club. One of the things I've been doing this year is having like these book clubs with my friends, and it's cute and sweet and makes me excited and also keeps me accountable to not only reading but also like hanging out with the people that I care about, which is great. I love both of those things. I then picked up a memoir that I have never heard of, but kind of similarly to this book, touches on concepts that I'm really interested in as a performer, and that is Constructing a Nervous System, a memoir by Margot Jefferson. Also, this cover is fantastic of like showing the nervous system, but also we have a dancer, we have this like mirrored effect. I am really into it. This is about the body, and this is about like not like cultural awareness, but this thing of like what are the influences on our lives, both like personally, like the people who've really influenced us, but also the music and the movies and the like social, I don't want to say like social conditions are not it, but that's the word I keep thinking of. The art that has impacted us as people. So yeah, I think I'm gonna really like this a lot. Okay, those are all the new books I've acquired. We have so many other books to talk about. So I'm gonna talk about like something that's really exciting. and that is a book series that I read and loved as a 6th grader. Like, I remember reading this in 6th grade, and I think I read through it multiple times. When I was at a thrift store, I saw one of these, and I was like, oh, wait. I knew that I wanted to reread these, but, like, the possibility of being able to acquire them was, like, realized. And I think it's so exciting that in the past 6 months, I found all of these, like, the full series secondhand. So this is the Land of Elyon books series. So this is the Dark Hills Divide, Beyond the Valley of Thorns, the 10th City, and this is kind of like a prequel or companion, Into the Mist. This is about a girl who lives in this, like, misty, islandy, like, I'm thinking of the environment of How to Train Your Dragon, but, like, really misty and, like, dark and gray and maybe not dragons. And yeah, I just, like, this was one of the books I read about magic girls that I loved. Okie dokie, let's talk about these piles over here. I picked up Longbourn by Joe Baker. This is a Pride and Prejudice inspired book that tells the story of the servants, the people that work at Longbourn, which is where the Bennet family lives. I really want to read this alongside a reread of Pride and Prejudice, and I also have Pride by E.B. Savoy, and do like a little, like, collected vlog, or just, like, reading these 3 in sequence. I have The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. This is a book that I referenced in a performance but have not read, so that seems bad. So I wanted to fix it, and I saw this at a Goodwill. This is a collection of meditations on delight and joy and existing in the world that I'm excited about. I picked up a play. Oh, Eleanor. I really hope she doesn't knock this over. Ma'am. Okay. I picked up a play, In the Next Room, or The Vibrator Play by Sarah Ruhl. I've seen 2 of Sarah Ruhl's plays, or, like, productions of them. So The Melancholia Play and Passion Play. Loved them both. Granted, like, people that I know and love were in them, or, like, directing them, so I'm a little biased. But Sarah Ruhl is an interesting playwright. I really want to read her Orlando, or see her Orlando. But this is about the invention of the vibrator in Victorian London. This is the other new book that I think I may have got. I picked it up at a different, like, bookstore that sells new and used, so I don't remember. This is Motherland, Fatherland, Homosexual. Oh, this is Motherland, Fatherland, Homeland Sexuals by Patricia Lockwood. Patricia Lockwood wrote Nobody Is Talking About This, which was the, like, I don't want to say, like, the internet book, or, like, the social media book, but a book that's about social media. This, I, like, saw the spine, and I looked at the cover, and I read the back, and I was like, I think I need to have this. What if a deer did porn? Is America going down on Canada? What happens when Niagara Falls gets drunk at a wedding? Is it legal to marry a stuffed owl exhibit? What would Walt Whitman's tit pics look like? This is some poetry. I picked up Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. This is a book I've heard about in terms of, like, experimental books to read, but also essential, like, Japanese literature. And I have no idea what this is about. Oh, Yoshimoto spins a lovely evocative tale that recalls early Marguerite Duras. I have read Marguerite Duras? Pardon my French, I don't know any. I found Delta of Venus by Anais Nin. Just some classic erotic fiction. I'm interested in like the history of erotic fiction. I took a erotic fiction class in college that was like fascinating and like put me outside of my comfort zone, and also I think spurred a lot of really interesting like intellectual, I want to say intellectual milling for myself. So I want to continue that like exploration. I have Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. This is a retelling or reimagining or like book inspired by Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and specifically looks at the mad woman trope, which is a trope I'm really interested in being explored and being like twisted and turned on its head, or also just like exploded. I picked up The Living by Annie Dillard. This is a family saga book. I mostly picked this up because I really enjoyed Pilgrim at Tinker Creek when I read it, and so I'm interested in reading some fiction by this author. Next, we have Leap by Terry Tempest Williams. I picked this up because its cover is pulls from The Garden of Earthly Delights. There was another book that I almost got because it had a Garden of Earthly Delights cover. That is my favorite painting. This is a creative scholarship about the Garden of Earthly Delights. And yeah, I'm super excited to read this. I like reading about art. I like creative scholarship as someone who practices it in performance art, and so like reading it or experiencing it in other forms is super fun. I picked up Gingerbread by Helen Oyeyemi. I read, what is it called? White is for Witching. I read White is for Witching and enjoyed it. I've always been super fascinated by gingerbread even before I read any Helen Oyeyemi, and I love this cover a lot. At a little free library I found On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is Ocean Vuong's novel. I don't know if it's his debut novel. About a son who is writing letters to his mother in Vietnam. I don't know if his mother is in Vietnam or elsewhere, but he's writing these letters that she won't read or won't be able to read. I haven't read any Ocean Vuong and know that I need to, and I want to. I'm just waiting for the time when I'm like ready for like a heartfelt, sad, deep, like achy book. Very different. I picked up Eleanor by Jason Gurley. This is a historical fiction, or like spans like from a historical time period to the present thriller about a mother who goes missing, and then like decades later the daughters, or like these sisters, are trying to figure out what happened. I picked up Sexual Persona, Art and Decadence from Nefertiti to Emily Dickinson by Camille Paglia. Kind of like what I said before, I like this history of like erotic fiction, but also this thing about looking at texts and people and like history through this lens of like sexuality and desire. And this seems like it could be something that I really like, could be really useful as like a reference. It's super dense, it's thick and heavy. This is like a heavy book that I found at a secondhand bookstore. At that same store, I found Salvage the Bones by Jesmond Ward. I really loved Sing Unburied Sing. I love her writing style. I love this way she has with characters. But this is about people in Mississippi right before a hurricane, and maybe during and right after. All right, my last stack. These are the most recent books that I've acquired. I have White Teeth by Zadie Smith. I have read a short essay or a short story by Zadie Smith, and I have Swing Time on my TBR. But I saw this and I was like, do I pick it up? Do I not? I'd passed it every other time that I'd seen it at a thrift store, and then yesterday or the day before I was like, it's time. It's time for me to pick up White Teeth. I don't know what it's about. I have a couple books that I don't know anything about. This one is Offshore by Penelope Fitzgerald. It says dazzling, the novelistic equivalent of a Turner watercolor. Really like Turner. There's a cat on the cover. This won the Booker Prize, and I try not to pick up books and like acquire them just because they like won the Booker Prize or the National Book Award or the Pulitzer Prize. But I do have a list in my like reading journal of like award-winning books, and I am curious to read them or like do again a reading vlog of like reading the books I have that have won the Booker Prize, or the books I've had that have won the Pulitzer Prize. This is a book I have never heard of, and it was in a horror section. I don't read horror. I picked up 2 things that were in that section. 2 of them. Who am I? This is The Descent of Alette, a rich odyssey of transformation in the tradition of Inferno. I don't know what this is about. It is poetry. It is in The Descent of Alette, Alice Notley presents a feminist epic, a bold journey into the deeper realms. Alette, the narrator, finds herself underground, deep beneath the city where spirits and people ride endlessly on subways not allowed to live in the world above. No clue. I am interested in pushing myself to read in genres that I don't typically. So like thriller and horror would be in there. So when I saw this book, I was like, I don't need to get this. I mean, I didn't need to get any of these, but I don't need to have this. But I looked at it and I was like, this is true. But what if I have fun? So I picked up the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I've heard a lot of things about Grady Hendrix. I've heard a lot of things about this book, especially like when it came out. And this is I think it's what it says on the tin. It's this book club, the Southern Book Club, that starts to deal with vampires. I then picked up Willa, The Life of Willa Cather by Phyllis C. Robinson. As I said before, Willa Cather is an author I'm really curious about. She is someone who I can see myself working with, or like working with her texts and working with her biography in future like artistic exploration. So when I saw this, I decided to pick it up. She wrote the classic novels of the American frontier, My Antonia and O Pioneers, and identified closely with the self-reliant spirit of the Nebraska prairie, but spent most of her adult years in New York City, first in Greenwich Village and later on Park Avenue. She formed passionate attachments to other women, yet in her work there are a few portrayals of affection or even friendship between women. So yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna get to that. I don't get to biographies very often, but I continue to pick them up. Lastly, I have a book. I keep talking about this relationship between reading or between books and my art practice, or like the things that I make in performance. Going like where I see myself right now as a performer, as a like movement artist, and as like a writer. I'm interested in like braiding those things together, and I'm interested in like ways that I can like set up a consistent practice for myself. And one thing I have in mind is using art, specifically like nature or like landscape art and like still life art, as a way to propel me into writing and like making movement compositions that like work together. So I picked up a collection of Monet's paintings, And this just has, like, it's Monet. So we've got some landscapes. We have Camille Monet and a child in the artist's garden. Beautiful. Thank you for watching this probably very long video. I'm getting into / back into the habit of sitting down and talking to a camera and recording it and uploading it. If any of these are books that you love, please let me know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video.